field office, division, or directorate has lost the most personnel since January 2025? And do you have the answer to that question?
Yeah, actually, every single field office in the country, including Hawaii, has received a plus-up of FBI agents because we're pushing them out to the field.
Okay, so you're telling me that no field office, division, or directorate has lost any personnel since January 20th, 2025? That's your answer?
In Hawaii, there's been a plus-up. In every single state that I'm looking at, we have allocated a plus-up for field offices across the country so that the FBI can continuing the historic achievements it's done in these last 7 months. When you're talking about firings, you're looking for a media hit and a fundraising clip, and I'm not going to give it to you.
It doesn't matter under what basis they left. I just want to know how many have left. And I think your testimony is nobody has left. Next question.
Nope,
Which
that's
field-
not my testimony. You asked it one time. I answered it one time. You didn't get the answer you wanted for your clip.
Next
So you keep
question.
asking it, and I told you I'd get you the numbers, but you can keep asking it.
Which field office, division, or directorate has gained the most personnel since January 2025? You noted that there have been plus-ups, so which
12 minutes ago, in a packed Senate hearing room with cameras rolling from every major network, something happened that nobody saw coming. FBI Director Kash Patel, the man who promised to drain the swamp and restore integrity to federal law enforcement, just got cornered by a Democratic senator who had clearly done her homework. And what unfolded in those 12 minutes exposed cracks in Patel's armor that even his strongest supporters can't ignore. I've covered congressional hearings for years, but this one felt different from the moment Patel walked into that room. His usual confident swagger was there, but there was something else, a tension in his shoulders, the way his eyes scanned the Democratic side of the committee table just a beat too long. It was like watching someone who knew they were walking into hostile territory, but couldn't figure out exactly where the attack would come from. The hearing was supposed to be routine. Annual budget review, operational updates, maybe some back and forth about immigration enforcement, standard congressional theater where Republicans praise and Democrats criticize. Everyone reads their prepared statements, provides rehearsed answers, and goes home. That's not what happened. Senator Mazie Hirono walked into that hearing room with a different energy. I noticed it immediately because Hirono doesn't usually bring the fire like this. She's methodical, precise, but today there was something sharper in her approach. She had numbers, she had specifics, and she had Kash Patel in her crosshairs. But here's what made this truly devastating. Hirono had clearly spent weeks preparing for this moment. This wasn't random questioning or political grandstanding. Every question built on the previous one, creating an inescapable web of accountability that Patel clearly hadn't anticipated. You could see it in how she organized her notes, the way she cross-referenced different topics, the surgical precision of each follow-up question. Director Patel, she began, her voice calm but loaded with something dangerous. There have been significant personnel changes at the FBI since President Trump took office. I want to understand the scope. How many FBI employees have retired, resigned, been fired, or otherwise separated from employment? Simple question, direct. The kind any FBI director should be able to answer off the top of his head. Patel's response, "We'll get you a number." That's when I knew this wasn't going to be the smooth sailing Patel expected. You don't say "we'll get you a number" when you're in control of the narrative. You don't deflect basic statistics unless those statistics are devastating. Hirono wasn't having it. "What is the number? You don't have it?" Patel tried to maintain his composure. "Not off the top of my head. I want to get you the right number." Then Hirono dropped the hammer. "Would it surprise you to know that it's probably in the thousands, like 5,000? Watch Patel's face in that moment. The micro-expression that flashed across his features before he recovered. That split second where you could see the calculation happening behind his eyes. His left hand moved slightly toward his water glass. A classic stress response I've seen countless times in these hearings. When powerful people start reaching for water during questioning, they're buying time to think, trying to regain control of a conversation that's slipping away from them. "I don't think that number is accurate," he finally responded, but his voice had lost some of its earlier certainty. But here's the thing. He didn't say it was wrong. He said he didn't think it was accurate. There's a difference, and everyone in that room caught it. Hirono moved to her next question with surgical precision. "How many special agents or analysts have left or been fired since January 20th, 2025? Again, Patel deflected. "We will get you the numbers. Anyone that retires is of their own volition. Anyone that has been terminated at the FBI is done so because they have failed to meet the standards and uphold their loyalty and oath to the Constitution." Notice what he did there. He didn't answer the question about how many. Instead, he pivoted to justification. When you start justifying before you've even provided the facts, you're losing control of the conversation. But Hirono wasn't done. She was just getting started. "How many executive assistant directors, or special agents in charge have left or been fired since January 20th, 2025? Same deflection, same non-answer. And you could see the frustration building in Patel's voice. This was supposed to be friendly territory. Republicans were supposed to be lobbing softballs so he could talk about FBI successes and administrative efficiency. Then Hirono asked the question that really exposed the scope of what's happening at the FBI. Which field office, division, or directorate has lost the most personnel since January 2025? Patel's answer revealed more than he intended. Actually, every single field office in the country, including Hawaii, has received a plus-up of FBI agents because we're pushing them out to the field. Think about that for a moment. She asked which office lost the most personnel. He responded by claiming every office gained personnel. That's not an answer. That's a redirect so obvious it would make a politician blush. Hirono called him on it immediately. "So you're telling me that no field office, division, or directorate has lost any personnel since January 20th? That's your answer?" And this is where Patel made a critical mistake. Instead of providing facts, instead of being transparent, he got defensive. He accused Hirono of looking for a media hit and a fundraising clip. This moment revealed everything about how Patel views his role. Instead of seeing congressional oversight as a legitimate function of American democracy, he treated it as a partisan attack to be deflected. This isn't just poor optics. It's a fundamental misunderstanding of what accountability means in a democratic system. When you're the FBI director, you don't get to dismiss tough questions as political theater. You answer them. The tension in the room was palpable. Even Republicans on the committee looked uncomfortable with Patel's dismissive tone. You could see some of them shifting in their seats, realizing that this wasn't the measured, professional response they needed their FBI director to display on national television. But the most damaging part of this exchange came when Hirono pressed him on leadership positions. The executive assistant directors in charge of the FBI's national security and intelligence branches were both forced out at the beginning of the year. Who replaced them? Patel refused to provide names. His justification? "I'm not going to give you any names so you can attack them." Let that sink in. The FBI director refused to tell Congress who is running the Bureau's national security and intelligence operations because he's afraid they might be criticized. That's not protection, that's acknowledgement that these appointments wouldn't survive scrutiny. Then came the revelation about counterterrorism agents. Hirono revealed that FBI counterterrorism specialists had been reassigned to immigration enforcement, only to be hastily returned when Iran threatened retaliation for U.S. strikes. Patel's response was telling. They never left their primary job. But Hirono had caught him in a contradiction. If they never left their primary jobs, why did they need to be returned? You can't return someone who never left. The Cyber Division questioning was equally damaging. Both the executive assistant director of the Criminal and Cyber Branch and the head of the FBI Cyber Division had left. When Hirono asked who replaced them, Patel again refused to provide names. "You're not getting the names," he said flatly. This isn't transparency. This isn't accountability. This is stonewalling. The physical fitness requirements discussion revealed another concerning pattern. When Hirono questioned new pull-up requirements that might discriminate against women, Patel's response was dismissive. If you want to chase down a bad guy and put him in handcuffs, you better be able to do a pull-up. The problem isn't the requirement itself, it's the attitude. The FBI director shouldn't be making flippant comments about federal employment standards during congressional oversight. What we witnessed in this hearing wasn't just tough questioning. It was the exposure of an FBI director who either doesn't know what's happening in his own organization or refuses to be transparent about it. Hirono's closing statement was devastating. I am gravely concerned by the state of the FBI under your control. The FBI is losing dedicated employees, decades of expertise and specialization. Thousands have already left. Patel's final response revealed everything about his priorities. That is an entire falsehood. You can delete my 16 years of government service to multiple administrations all you want. Notice what he did. Instead of addressing the concerns about FBI operations, he made it about himself. Instead of providing the transparency he promised, he played the victim. This hearing exposed fundamental questions about the direction of federal law enforcement under Kash Patel's leadership. When the FBI director can't or won't tell Congress how many people have left the Bureau, who's running critical divisions, or why counterterrorism experts were reassigned during a period of heightened international tension, something is seriously wrong. The clips from this hearing are already spreading across social media. Patel refuses to answer basic questions is trending. Legal experts are questioning whether this level of stonewalling is appropriate for someone running federal law enforcement. And somewhere in FBI field offices across the country, agents are probably wondering if their leadership is more focused on loyalty tests than law enforcement. This wasn't the routine hearing Patel expected. It was a 12-minute masterclass in how congressional oversight is supposed to work. Senator Hirono came prepared with specific questions, refused to accept non-answers, and exposed the gap between Patel's promises of transparency and his actual performance. The question now is whether this matters. Will Patel face consequences for stonewalling Congress? Will the American people demand better accountability from their FBI director? Or will this just be another day in Washington where tough questions get deflected and real answers remain hidden? What we witnessed today wasn't just a hearing, it was a stress test of democratic institutions, and Kash Patel failed that test spectacularly. When the person responsible for federal law enforcement can't or won't answer basic questions about the organization he leads, it raises fundamental questions about who's really in charge at the FBI. The implications go beyond just Patel's performance. If the FBI director can stonewall Congress with impunity, if he can refuse to name his senior staff, if he can deflect accountability with accusations about political motives, what does that say about the state of federal law enforcement? What message does that send to FBI agents in the field who took an oath to uphold the Constitution? 12 minutes. That's all it took for Mazie Hirono to expose the gap between Kash Patel's promises and his performance. The FBI director who promised to drain the swamp just got caught neck-deep in the very opacity he claimed to oppose. The hearing continues, but the damage is done. When you can't answer basic questions about your own organization, when you refuse to name your senior staff, when you deflect accountability with accusations about media hits, you've lost the narrative. And in Washington, once you've lost the narrative, it's almost impossible to get it back.